and jump right. So first up, we'll see how to draw a local redistricting plan in Dave's Redistricting app, or DRA, specifically first looking at a city or county map. And then we'll turn attention to drawing other types of local maps. So school board maps, for example, maybe even like a regional planning map or something else unique to your area. After that, I'm going to briefly highlight how you would analyze these local redistricting plans. And then I'm going to emphasize some important considerations and cautions when you're doing local redistricting in DRA, specifically around the data and the criteria. If you're really familiar with statewide redistricting, there's just some additional considerations to be aware of at the local level. Then we will close by noting some exciting local data that's coming to the Redistricting Data Hub in 2024 and beyond, some of which you could use in DRA. And after that, of course, anyone who wants to stay on and ask questions, please do so. All right. So the first thing you're going to do is go to davesredistricting.org and either log in or sign up. As we walk through all of this today, I'm going to have screenshots to show you what it would look like. And so if you want to follow along at work or at home by either logging in or having, if you have an existing account, or creating a new account if you don't have one already, please go ahead and do that. And while you're doing that, I just want to highlight the mission of Dave's Redistricting app, which is to empower civic organizations and citizen activists to advocate for fair congressional and legislative districts and increase transparency in the redistricting process. Unsurprisingly, given their mission, the app is primarily created to draw state legislative and congressional maps, but they have implemented a lot of new features over the last few years. And so we're going to learn today how you can go about doing all types of local redistricting and DRA. You could also use some of the methods that we go through today to draw community of interest maps, for example. So once you're logged into DRA, you'll be at the home page, and you're going to want to click New Map to create a new map. You can find this button in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Your screen won't look exactly like this because it's showing all of my maps. So when you're logged in, you'll see all of your maps, okay? But you'll see all the same features along the top border there, including the New Map button. So please note, I'm going to go through a few steps here all together, but then we're going to go through them again, step by step with screenshots so you can see them, and then we're actually going to redo them a couple of times in this training. So don't worry if it seems like I'm going too fast through it, this list initially. After you select this new map, you're going to select a number of map settings, and this is all going to be in a dialog box on the right-hand side. And you're going to want to give your map a name. You're going to want to select the state that you're drawing your local map in. You're going to want to select updated precincts if applicable, and if desired. You'll want to restrict to city or county as relevant for you. And then you're also going to want to select the number of districts, checking multi-member districts if applicable. Okay, so let's see all that in action here. So I selected the new map button. This dialog box opened up on the right-hand side. I haven't filled out anything yet, but as I said, you're going to want to give your map a name, of course, and something that is sensible and accurately reflects the map you're drawing is highly encouraged and advised, not only for your own sake of, if you're someone who creates a lot of maps, being able to figure out and locate your own maps quickly, but as you'll see later on in this training, also for sharing that map with others. Okay, so you're going to give your map a name, whatever you like. Then you're going to want to select the state that you're drawing in. And just a list of all 50 states there. And then you'll see that the shapes below state, the shapes are set to 2020 precincts. That's the default in every state. In some states, depending on where you're drawing, Some states will have an option to do updated precincts, okay? Now, these updated precincts are 2022 precincts. They're only available in a certain number of states currently and in a certain number of localities in some states. So that data, those 2022 precincts, is actually being provided to Dave's redistricting app by our organization, the Redistricting Data Hub. And we're hyper-focused right now on the data for states that are engaged in mid-decade redistricting or ongoing litigation, which is kind of a long list. So we still don't even have all of those states yet. But for example, you'll find 2022 data for Ohio, Alabama, North Carolina. We're working on a couple other states right now. So do check that out if it's available in your state. You may also, as I see updated precincts for specific localities, just like a whole county, but not the whole state, in where you're drawing. And users of DRA, if they find 2022 precincts for that county or some other local jurisdiction, and it's available directly from a government agency, right? They can send a link to the DRA team, and the DRA team can download those precincts directly from the county or that other local agency. Then they will go ahead and upload them as well. So it's very idiosyncratic at this point about which states have it and which don't, but we are working on adding more. Okay. So after selecting your updated precincts or not, you'll want to select the plan type. The plan type you're going to want to select as other, and that is true of all of our examples today. We're going to be selecting our plan type as other. Now, once you select other, actually, let me go back just a second. You're going to select other, and then below that is restrict to, and you can see it's currently set to entire state. Okay, but if you click that, it's going to open up this dialog box here. Okay, where you can select what you are restricting to. So do you want to restrict to a county or a city or something else? Right now, we're just talking about drawing county and city maps. So if you were drawing a county, legislative map or a board of commissioner map, something like that, select county. If you're drawing a city council or something else along those lines, then, select city. In my particular example for today's training, I wanted to do the city of Littleton, Colorado. So I selected the city button, and then rather than scrolling through all the many cities and census designated places that are in the state of Colorado, I just used the search bar at the top to start typing in Littleton and quickly find what I was looking for. So once that was pulled up, I just, check the little blue box there and then go ahead and select pick. And so now that will close the dialog box. And now you can see in my map settings that I've restricted to just Littleton, Colorado. Okay, that's just what I want to draw here. I also had to look up how many city councilors they have there, and it is 7. So you can update the district count as well to however many districts are applicable in your particular context. Okay, so after filling out all this information in the map settings, I'm finally ready to start drawing my county or my city plan. So this is the outline of Littleton, Colorado. Okay. As you can see, my drawing is restricted to this area. If I were to try to fill in, sections of Denver, for example, it's not going to let me do that, right? In the same way that if you were drawing, a statewide plan for Colorado and DRA, it doesn't let you start adding in, parts of Wyoming or anything outside of the state of Colorado. DRA recognizes that you want to restrict your drawing to this particular area. Once you start drawing using the paint feature up at the top left there, your district statistics are also going to start updating. The total unassigned population that you're starting with to assign to your districts and the ideal district population, right? What is the sort of number of people you're aiming for within each particular district are all correct for Littleton based on the 2020 census, right? DRA understood that you wanted to restrict your drawing to just this area. And so only the population in this area is what you're concerned with assigning to particular districts. finally, here's my map, 7 districts. Nice and compact looking, because that was basically all I was thinking about, along with trying to attain mostly equal population. This could actually be a not very good map at all for the city here, if once we started talking to folks in the community and sort of finding out, what areas should be kept whole, right? But for the purposes of this training, I just kept it sort of overly simplistic, and we'll go with this. Okay, so cities and counties, not too bad, right? Pretty easy to implement. What if you wanted to do a school board or some other local jurisdiction that is not already available in DRA? So just to be clear here, all counties or parishes if you're in Louisiana, or boroughs if you're in Alaska, those are all definitely available in DRA. Their census geographies. DRA has all the census geographies in there. So absolutely, if you want to draw something at the county level, you do it just the way I showed you. The vast majority of municipalities, of cities, are also going to already be in DRA. But there are some that could be missing. There could also be like some towns or other sort of small geographic units that are not already available in DRA. And almost certainly, if you're looking to draw a school board or some other type of local plan like that, that is not going to be readily available in DRA. So what do? You have a couple of options here. Option 1 is it's possible that another DRA user created a map of the area that you want to redistrict and published it. And that, I think, would be more likely to be true if you have local redistricting ongoing in this particular area and you have lots of members of the community who are engaged. And so somebody just already beat you to the punch and made it in DRA. Okay. Even if that happens, you'll have to be able to find that map. And you can only find that map in DRA if it's got a sensible map name. So that's the really good reason I was trying to push for having sensible map names there. You'll also want to be able to trust that the user actually drew an accurate and correct map. So if all of that feels like a stretch to you, you can always create that map yourself. It does create an extra step, but the flexibility it provides for local drawing is totally worth it. So in short, what we're going to do here is create eventually 2 maps. We're first going to create a single district map that represents the entirety of the local area that we want to redistrict. And then we're going to use that map, that single district map, as the restriction for drawing the actual local plan that we want to draw. Okay, but of course, let's actually see that in action. I'm actually going to shift a little bit west from Littleton and look at the neighboring school district. This is called the Jeffco School District. It's got 5 districts, and it's named Jeffco because it is largely coterminous with Jefferson County. I had to go online to find this map, and in fact, I've included this link so we could take a quick look at the full map here because it's a little small on the slides. So what's interesting about this, I mean, this is very common for PDF maps, right? The boundary lines are pretty thick. The, resolution is decent, but it's not ideal. And most interesting of all, if you look at the bottom of this map here, you'll notice this red box inset. So they actually don't even show the entire district, the entire school board district in this map. It looks like this big, geographically speaking district, District 2, actually stretches farther south than this map allows. So this is not an ideal map, but this is exactly the kind of map that you are very likely to run into if you're trying to do local redistricting. I mean, certainly I would encourage you to, if you have a contact or can easily contact somebody at this school board, or again, whatever local area that you're hoping to redistrict, and just see if they have something geospatially for the boundaries, shape files or something like that, because then you can import it directly into DRA. Otherwise, you're going to have to be, squinting a little bit at this PDF map and sort of, trying to replicate it essentially in DRA. Okay. So like I said, this is a 2-step process, and we're going to have to create 2 maps to do it right. So we're going to go back to the home page and create our first new map, just like before. Then just like before, we're going to fill out all of our map settings. You're going to want to give your map a good name. I called it Jeffco SB for Jeffco School Board. You're going to want to select the state. I'm still in Colorado here. Select your updated precincts if desired. Select your plan type as other still, always setting to other here. And then for this first map, you're going to leave the restrict to set at the entire state. Okay, so just leave the whole state available and open for drawing. And then you're going to want to change the district count to be 1. That should be the case no matter what. Whether I'm drawing this school board with 5 districts, or maybe I was trying to eventually redistrict something with 14 districts. Always for this first map, you're just going to have 1 district for the map. And then we're going to use the paint feature again to fill in the area of my entire school district. So this is what I was talking about, where you're sort of going back and forth between looking at the PDF and looking at DRA and trying to figure out how to replicate this map well. I was a bit lucky with the Jeffco example because, as I said, the school board is largely coterminous with Jefferson County. There's just a few exceptions, in the city or town of Broomfield, as you can kind of see there at the top corner. But that made my life a lot easier. And if you are looking to redistrict something that largely follows existing lines, existing municipal lines or existing county lines, you can use those features, right? You can use county up here, city up here to draw and capture all of that into your single district, and then go down to a finer resolution precincts or blocks and start pulling those in to make the map match exactly. Then I'm going to go back to my maps page after I've filled out the entire area that I'm eventually looking to redistrict here. And I'm going to publish my map. Publishing the map will enable me to find it in step 2 and restrict my drawing to the area that I just drew. Okay. So to do that, you just first select the map. You can see the box with its little blue check mark there again. And that will open up additional options and actions at the top, including the option to publish the map. Now, this will make your map available to all other DRA users. Your maps by default are not published and therefore not available to other DRA users. So you can always unpublish your map if you change your mind or you don't want that for any reason, or of course, just delete the map altogether. So now on to step 2, which starts exactly the same as step 1. Going to create a new map. We're going to fill out our map settings. We're going to give our map a name. We're going to select the state. We're going to select our precincts, and we're going to select our plan type as other. Like I said at the beginning, many more opportunities to walk through these map settings. Okay. Now this time you are going to select the restrict to button. Okay. That dialog box is going to open back up, and rather than selecting county or city, I'm going to select map. And again, as with my example before, rather than scrolling through all the possible DRA maps for Colorado, I'm going to use the search feature. I'm just going to type in Jeffco, and very quickly I find my published map. So I select it, and then I pick it. Okay. So this is what your map settings should look like more or less at the end here. And now you can see that I'm restricted to drawing only within the map that I just created. So now we are actually ready to start redistricting. Here is my blank map. Just like was the case with my city map that was already created in DRA. I'm not able to draw outside of this. The total unassigned population is the population of this school board district according to the 2020 census. Here's my map all filled out. Again, I was just looking at equal population, trying to achieve that more or less, and then, trying to draw mostly compact districts. I really don't know much about this area, and so this could be a very below average map. Okay. More importantly, I just wanted to show you all that I drew this map the way I would draw any other map in DRA. So now let's talk just briefly about analyzing local redistricting maps. You can, of course, analyze the map you just drew, and that may be the one of most interest to you. If you do happen to have a local, a city, a county, or a school board, anything that actually does have a map that is available geospatially, you could also import that map into DRA and analyze that. Okay. Now, very commonly, there are shape files, they're in a zip folder. You may also encounter other formats such as a GeoJSON or a block assignment file, which is a CSV, or something along those lines. But for pretty much the vast majority of formats that you would encounter maps to be in, you'll be able to import into DRA. Here's where that import button can be found, just to the right of the new map button. And then there's really three main areas of the app that you're going to use for analysis, most likely. First up is the statistics button, which enables comparisons of districts based on population and election data. When your map is open, whether it's the map you just drew or the map you just imported, you'll see at the top here the statistics button. Okay. Once you click that, it'll show you this table here. And so as you recall, I drew this 5 districts in my school board. And so it's going to tell me the total population of those districts, the population deviation from the ideal. It's also going to show me partisan lean. This is based on the election results composites that are identified at the bottom there. So it says, composite of 2016 presidential election, 2020 presidential election, and then a handful of other 2016 and 2018 statewide election results. It also tells me the racial demographics for the voting age population of each district according to the 2020 census. You can also use the Analyze button to see metrics on common redistricting criteria. The Analyze button is right next to the Statistics button. It will provide you with this radar graph, which is a really quick look at just how your map stacks up on 5 key criteria as operationalized in DRA. So that would be compactness, minority representation, competitiveness, proportionality, and splitting. These metrics may or may not be how you actually want to measure them or think about them. There's a lot more to learn about analytics and DRA. That would be a whole separate training if we do that. So just wanted you to be aware of that. But for the purposes of now, just know that the way that they've measured these in DRA is on a 0 to 100 scale for all of them, and higher scores are considered better. So, a score of 50 for competitiveness is actually perfectly in the middle, right? There's many more ways to draw a competitive map and many fewer ways to draw that. My map is not at all proportional. It scores very, very low on the proportionality measure. Lastly, you can use the compare button to compare your map with up to 5 other maps. As I mentioned at the outset, our last training was on how to use this exact feature in DRA. So definitely check it out if you missed it and want to learn more. We also talk about Redistricting in You, which is a different app that also enables really easy comparisons of 2 maps. Okay. In my case, with my Jefferson County School Board map, there weren't actually any other maps to compare to in DRA. And if you're creating a map for the first time, like I had to, chances are that's going to be the case for you too, right? There are no other maps in DRA for Jefferson County, but city or county maps may have some other options. So it may be a really interesting feature for you to play around with. Okay. The compare feature mostly replicates what you saw in Analyze with just the scores on all those metrics, right? From 0 to 100. So before we end today, I want to highlight a couple of things to be cautious about with local redistricting specifically. The first is that no matter what someone tells you otherwise, all redistricting plans must comply with federal requirements around equal population and minority representation as protected in the Voting Rights Act. I've heard enough stories at this stage of the game about folks approaching officials in local jurisdictions and being told, we don't have to redistrict. That could plausibly be the case if the map already in place is already compliant with those two federal principles, right? If they already meet the equal population requirements and they're already compliant with the Voting Rights Act, okay? So it is theoretically possible that a local jurisdiction would not have to redistrict, but anybody who just tells you like we never have to redistrict is incorrect, okay? And at a minimum, they should be checking these maps periodically to make sure that they are still in compliance with both of those federal criteria. A second caution, especially around equal population, is that some local governments have implemented prison gerrymandering reforms. Typically, what that means is that the 2020 census data, which is the default in DRA, is likely not what you should be using for redistricting. We're thinking about a training on analyzing prison gerrymandering in DRA, so shout it out in the chat if that's something that you would find particularly interesting. In the meantime, I want to plug Prison Policy Initiative. They have a ton of great resources, including more information on which local jurisdictions this applies in. Beyond equal population in the VRA, state or local law may stipulate additional criteria. California, for example, has pretty extensive criteria for their local jurisdictions and are working on amending them even more. Florida, we just heard, implemented a prohibition on incumbent gerrymandering at the local level. So it's really good to familiarize yourself with what the criteria are for your jurisdiction. A very common criterion for state redistricting is contiguity. That is the requirement that if you traced a district boundary with a pencil, you wouldn't have to pick up the pencil to circle all parts of the district. So there are lots of municipalities that are non-contiguous, including my example of Littleton, Colorado. DRA does not take that into account. So it will flag your map as failing contiguity checks, and that just may be impossible to avoid at the local level. If you're really, really concerned about it, you can always assign those non-contiguous areas last to your map so that you can check contiguity along the way. Last thing I want to mention is that there is no local election data, especially if you're thinking about minority representation. Local elections are much more relevant data for assessing that kind of question, but it's really hard to get on a national scale. That, however, segues into my last point for today's training, which is that Redistricting Data Hub will soon be hosting select local data in a handful of states: Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi. This data will include local election results joined with precinct boundaries. However, that is data you'd have to use in a different tool, QGIS or ArcGIS, for example. We'll also be hosting local candidate race and ethnicity data for those elections, and we'll be collecting updated municipal boundaries. So the boundaries that are in DRA are all from the 2020 census, but cities are constantly changing. They annex and they de-annex areas of land. So we'll be working to obtain updated boundaries in some of these areas to ensure more accurate map drawing. And if you're already on our mailing list, then you already knew all that. But if you'd like to be notified of when this data becomes available, please go ahead and sign up. We promise we don't just send things out to send them. We always have something new to report to you. So that concludes our mapping snack training for today.